What was the most terrifying Nazi weapon of World War II? Many people might say the V-2 rocket, the first ballistic missile, a technological marvel that struck fear into Londoners. But honestly, it was an expensive, inaccurate dud that killed fewer people than a single major bombing raid. So, what were the weapons that actually terrified Allied soldiers and strategists? Today, we're counting down the real monsters of the Third Reich's arsenal, separating the overrated myths from the truly fearsome killers. You might be surprised by what comes out on top. Let's start with some honorable mentions and myth-busting. You've probably heard of the Nebelwerfer, the Screaming Mimi. Its screeching rockets and massive smoke trails were designed for psychological shock. While certainly scary to be on the receiving end of, its immense noise and smoke made it a giant shoot-me sign for Allied artillery. It was more of a terrifying nuisance than a tactical game-changer. Then there's the V-1 flying bomb, the original cruise missile. It buzzed over England, creating panic, but it was slow, noisy, flew in a straight line, and Allied pilots got pretty good at shooting them down, even tipping them over with their wingtips. Militarily, it was insignificant. And what about the legendary Tiger tank? It was a beast, for sure. Its 88mm gun and thick armor were formidable. But it was also a diva. The Tiger was absurdly expensive, guzzled fuel like it was going out of style, and broke down constantly. For every Tiger that was knocked out in combat, many more were simply abandoned by their crews due to mechanical failures. It was a powerful but deeply flawed status symbol. Not a war-winning weapon. Another fighter, the Messerschmitt Bf 109, was the workhorse of the Luftwaffe. Early in the war, it was a deadly opponent, but it suffered from short range, weak armament compared to later Allied fighters, and tricky landing gear. By the war's end, it was largely obsolete. Now let's get into the real contenders. First up, a weapon that put fear into every Allied tanker, the Panzerfaust. This was the original disposable anti-tank rocket launcher. It was incredibly simple, cheap to produce, and brutally effective at close range. Suddenly, any lone German soldier hiding in a bombed-out building in France or on the Eastern Front could kill a 30-ton Sherman tank. It completely changed the dynamics of urban warfare and made every street corner a potential death trap for Allied armor. The Panzerfaust democratized tank killing, and that was a terrifying prospect. Next, a weapon that changed infantry combat forever, the Sturmgewehr 44, or STG-44. This was the world's first true assault rifle. Before the STG-44, you had slow-firing but long-range rifles, or you had short-range submachine guns that sprayed bullets. The STG-44 combined the best of both. It had a 30-round magazine, selective fire for full auto or semi-auto, and used an intermediate cartridge that was effective out to several hundred meters. It gave German infantry a massive firepower advantage over soldiers armed with bolt-action rifles. Let's talk about a piece of artillery so good, it became the most feared anti-tank weapon of the war, the 88mm flak gun. Originally designed as a high-altitude anti-aircraft cannon, German commanders, most famously Erwin Rommel, discovered its secret talent. When pointed horizontally, its high-velocity shell could punch through the armor of any Allied tank from incredible distances, long before the tanks were even in range to fire back. The Allies had no effective counter for it early on. The 88 forced a complete rethink of Allied armored doctrine and became a legendary tank killer. Hearing the crack of an 88 meant you were already in deep trouble. Now for a tank that, unlike the Tiger, had the potential to be a genuine war winner, the Panther. When it worked, the Panther was arguably the best all-around tank of World War II. It had a fantastic, high-velocity 75mm gun that could kill Allied tanks at long range, well-sloped frontal armor that was almost immune to Sherman and T3 for guns, and good mobility for a tank of its size. It was a perfect balance of firepower, protection, and speed. So what was the problem? It was rushed into production. Early models were plagued with mechanical issues, especially a tendency for the engine to catch fire and the transmission and final drives to fail. The complex design and a lack of high-quality materials meant they were never as reliable as they needed to be. But a platoon of Panthers, fully operational, was a sight that struck absolute terror into Allied tank crews. So, we've seen some truly terrifying weapons: the Panzerfaust, the STG-44, the 88, the Panther, but one weapon system stands above them all. It didn't fight on land, but it came closer than anything else to defeating the Allies. The truly most terrifying weapon of the Third Reich was the Type 7 U-boat. These submarines were the wolves of the Atlantic, operating in wolf packs. They preyed on the convoys that were Britain's lifeline, sinking millions of tons of shipping carrying food, fuel, and war materials. For a time, they were sinking ships faster than the Allies could build them. Winston Churchill himself said the only thing that truly frightened him during the war was the U-boat peril. They were invisible, they were deadly, and they almost starved Britain into submission. Before the Allies cracked their codes and developed new anti-submarine tactics, the silent, unseen threat of the U-boat was the greatest fear of the Allied command. It wasn't the flashy rockets or giant tanks, it was the humble submarine that came closest to winning the war for Germany. What do you think? Did I miss anything? Let me know your pick for the most terrifying weapon in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe for more military history. See you next time.